It is Tuesday, broadcasting live from the DKI studios at 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Big show today. Busy weekend. A lot of happy people. If you're a Leaf fan, you're happy. I think if you're a Jets fan, you're happy.
Happier?
Happier, yeah. I think if you're a Flames fan, a little bit of happiness in there.
Yep. And if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, you still live in Ottawa.
Yeah, so drink that up. If you feel happy, look outside the window. Yeah. If you're an Oilers fan, you might be a little upset this morning. We'll get to that. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, you might be upset you lost, but you knew you were going to lose a lot anyway. But Trubisky looked pretty good. We'll talk about all the NFL. Those are big stories, obviously huge in Major League Baseball. But was that necessarily the biggest story in the weekend? A lot of people say, well, of course it is. What could have been a bigger story than Austin Matthews, than Major League Baseball playoffs? Maybe it was this. That's right. The beautiful people of Ireland, God's people. There's a reason why. It's because of this.
Of Ireland. Arter leaves it. McLean! James McLean has been the star of this campaign for the Republic of Ireland. And he might just have hit the most crucial blow of the whole journey.
Too bad, you bastards. You sheep-shagging bastards. The people of Jesus. Jesus was from Ireland. A lot of people don't know that. Did you know that, David?
No, I did not know that. No.
The Lord Jesus was from Ireland. Yep. He was 30 years old, had no job, and lived with his mother. That's an Irish joke right there. It's beautiful. Yeah, that was huge if you were an Irish fan.
Did they say McLean?
McLean.
What's the first thing you think about when you hear McLean?
McLean.
Yes.
John McLean.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they don't say it like that. It's not the people I know.
I want you to go German terrorist on me when you say McLean.
There's a go by McLean. And by the way, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. It's right. And so they'll have a playoff depending on what happens today. There's like a million more games that have to be played. And they'll get ready for a World Cup in Russia, Dave. So I see our good friend Declan Harlan, also from Dublin, who's high up and he works for a place called WestJet. They're WestJet setters. Something like that.
Interesting.
And he said, we're going to Moscow. Can you imagine going to a World Cup? Now, it'd be a little scary. I mean, we were there for Ufa, Russia, when the World Juniors, but this is
Oh, yeah.
No, you've done a lot of big events. You've done a ton of Olympics.
Haven't done World Cup, though. I'd always want to do a World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olympics and World Championships, Stanley Cups, Grey Cups, Super Bowls, World Junior Championships, regular seasons in North America.
You've done pretty much everything but then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wouldn't that be good?
That'd be awesome. I'd rather just go as a fan, though, not necessarily.
No, we're not working. Like, even if I say Mike Richards is going to be in Russia.
It's like, yeah, we won't turn on a microphone.
Yes, this is the thing. Oh, please. Yeah, that would not be a great show. What was a great show? Well, if you're a Leaf fan, and you got to know that someone over there is really happy, just admit how happy you are.
Yeah, tell us.
Yes.
Tell us, Happy Cat.
Very happy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
comeback.
Very happy.
Comeback from 3-1 and overtime, and it was your hero, Austin Matthews. So the question, I've got a tweet in here from a woman.
Okay.
She says, Leaf Queen. Leaf Queen.
Leaf Queen, okay.
Is Russell hard? Oh, it's a fair question. Yeah. Didn't think it was going there, but are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just gonna.
But
But
during the overtime,
maybe just the pleats.
Maybe this goal.
Yeah, okay. So I know. So property of the National Hockey League. Here's the completed comeback, an unassisted goal. Joe Bowen on the call.
Jonathan Taves trying to get around Connor Brown.
Property of the National Hockey League.
And intercepted by Matthews. One man back. Matthews in over the line. Gardner with him. Matthews scores! Holy mackerel! What a shot! Austin Matthews wins the game!
There it is right there. Wow. That was something. Hey, and a lot of people don't know this, eh? That Austin Matthews there, good Kingston boy, eh? It's true and everything like that, eh? He grew up in, like people talk about Arizona. It's not, eh? Grew up in Kingston, just around the corner from Dougie Gilmore. Went to Arizona for a while, I think, schooling and everything like that, eh? And Mexican mom, eh? Which is nice. Nice, like Saturday night tacos and everything. Then he come back to Kingston. Then he goes over to someplace in Europe no one knows, eh? It's a bit of a secret. They call this the Wonder Years of Matthews, eh? And then he come back. He stayed with Dougie Gilmore. Stayed over at his house. They had pillow fights and everything. Jiffy Pop, popcorn and all that. And then he goes to Tirana. And look at that. He's a beauty, eh? What do you think there, roast beef? You're probably hard too, eh? Don't lie. You love him, eh? You probably want to rub him. Even though you're shit.
Great guy. Great guy.
By the way, for the record, that was Anton Forsberg's 11th career National Hockey League game.
See, this would be a backhanded compliment too.
Well,
there's the glass a little half empty for Dave Pastel. But let's not leave it at that. So, okay. So first of all, we don't have to get too much into trends. I mean, don't tell me about the first 3 games because come on, guys. Honestly, 82 games. I'm not really going to read too much into anything one way or the other. The only thing I would say, if I'm the coaching staff, if I'm Mike Babcock and the rest of the group, I'm saying that so far my team is engaged. They're prepared. Even when we like that first own goal on Toronto. I mean that I'm not blaming Frederick on that one.
I am.
Oh well, he'd be the troublemaker of the coaching staff. Come on, Anderson. But I didn't see it. Yeah, like he stalks like that. Anyway, so, but the comeback, the ability to do it against a Chicago team who scored, I believe, the first 2 games, 200 goals.
I think this was their most complete game. When you look at it, it wasn't their highest scoring game, but from start to finish, they were engaged. They had they were down 2 goals in the first period, which wasn't great, but you know what? They stayed competitive as far as shots on goal, dominated the second and third, dominated 5-on-5, deserved to win this game, took advantage of the backup goaltending situation, who actually played quite well in the Chicago net. But when you look at it, because you could kind of poke holes into that Ranger win with the comeback by the Rangers in that one. You could poke holes in the Jets one because of how they started off and really never dominated play for a good portion of that game. But that game yesterday against a very good Blackhawk team, against a Blackhawk team who is better than borderline New York Rangers, better than borderline Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
You know what? I say, good for them. They should continue this role. It's New Jersey next. That should be a W. That should make this team 4-0 on the season. And you know what? A great start to the year for a team that has to collect points in October, has to collect them in November because it's going to get a lot tougher. And there's going to be situations like yesterday's that the puck won't bounce in their direction. Chicago will win that next overtime game, or they'll win in regulation, and they'll face teams that they can't beat, they can't overcome. They let in the bad goals. So pocket 6 points in 3 games. It's a great way to start.
It is a great way to start. Now, you talk about some of those teams that had aspirations. I know that for the Winnipeg Jets, realistically, before the season starts, if you're talking about the pundits, those that are supposed to know, and even from where you and maybe still see them, where are the Jets supposed to be before the season starts? What is the mindset? Where are they finishing?
You know what? It's probably a split when you look at everybody that kind of made their predictions on this is just barely a playoff team or this is just barely missing a playoff team. They're kind of in that middle road of 7, 8, 9, 10.
So they're a bubble team. Probably.
They're a bubble team,
yeah.
And you know what? And I think you could say the same thing about the New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference. They're a team that you sit there and you go, man, they're missing a lot of guys. The offseason hasn't been very good to them, especially that trade with the Phoenix Coyotes. When Mika Zibanejad is a top 6 forward, some would say the top center on the team. that's telling you that there's going to be some problems. You saw what King Hank did in net. When you leave a goalie out to dry, he's going to let in goals. He's not as good as he was a couple seasons ago. So it's a bubble team there in the Eastern Conference. So, just like I mentioned about the Leafs, they beat up two bubble teams, which they should, and they move on, kind of thing. So,
well, there is some good news for Jets fans here this morning. We're not just going to show Austin Matthews, but Ehlers had himself an enormous game against a team that probably won't lose a whole bunch. And if you're thinking of goal scoring, you're thinking it's going to be that team in the hideous orange jerseys. Sometimes those are bad jerseys.
You don't like them, eh?
I don't like.
I kind of like them because it reminds me of their WHA jerseys.
Yeah,
that's when the Jets used to beat up on the Oilers back in those days.
Nah, I was too busy necking with chicks. Sorry, I just thought I'd throw that in there. And Ehlers apparently so good that he even fooled the play-by-play guys from Edmonton, or maybe they were just sad too. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of both.
And property of the National Hockey League. Here is the last goal of the hat trick for Ehlers.
Trying to beat the Oilers in regulation for the first
property of the National Hockey League.
23rd, 2015. Shifley, cross ice, Ehlers stopped by Talbot. No, he put it in, and it's Ehlers with the hat trick. Nikolai Ehlers, his second career hat trick, and his first since he got one against Arizona. And there is one hat on the ice.
Just stuck in the back of the net. He just kind of hit behind that pad where the camera often is.
3 straight goals for Nikolai Ehlers.
Look at it
it's a
on the ice.
5-2 game.
Got to hand to the Jet fan. I'm throwing my hat.
I'm tossing this one.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Good for him.
Not the best of call from Kevin Quinn, eh? I don't know how he sees that doesn't go in the net.
Maybe he's terrible. Maybe he's terrible, Dave.
Stop by Talbot. Wake up. That went straight in.
Dennis Bayak wouldn't make that mistake.
No, he wouldn't.
I'm just saying.
Dennis Bayak would have overemphasized the goal.
Or maybe he's doing the old, I hope it doesn't go in because I am the play-by-play guy for the other team. No, that was saved. No, you can't just overrule it. You can't just say that it didn't go in. But it did, and so I think if you're a Jets fan, that was kind of a surprise because you think about it. After the first 2 games, there might be a feeling after getting lit up.
Oh, yeah.
That you might be getting lit up again by the team that's supposed to score the most.
Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers are the best team of the 3 teams that they actually face, and that's the team the Jets win. And they do it with a backup goaltender too, which was crazy. Defensively, the structure was more in place. The Oilers still had 39 shots on goal, but the Jets had 43. And you're going to get this game in and game out. They're a little bit of run and gun. They're probably one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NHL. If you're actually looking at the top 3 teams, in my opinion, for excitement, if you're going to sit down and watch a game, the Jets, the Oilers, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think anybody competes with them at any level in any part of the 2 conferences. And you know what? When 2 of them go head-to-head, you saw what the Jets and the Maple Leafs look like on opening night. Wasn't great on my side of things, but it was great if you're a Leafs fan. You saw what the Jets and the Oilers had to contribute. And you know what? I'm looking forward to that Oiler Maple Leaf game that only happens twice a year, but it's going to be really exciting when you have those 2 run and gun type teams going head to head. Most exciting NHL hockey. That's what you want to present to somebody that is asking about the game of hockey. Let them watch one of those 3 teams, and they'll fall in love with hockey pretty fast.
I would say the start of the NHL season, where I've been pretty critical at times of really how much fun is it to watch a National Hockey League game. Sometimes it hasn't been fun at all, and it's because the level of hockey that's played. There's not a huge discrepancy from a night to night basis at times, but you're starting to see a little bit of this run and gun. And if I'm just a hockey fan or someone who wance to be entertained, this has been a great start to the National Hockey League. Unlike, and we'll talk to Clark Judge, by the way, in about
5 minutes,
10 minutes here, about what has been a slow start for the National Football League. It has not been the glorious games or even in terms of excitement. Although last night had everything you kind of wanted, but we'll get to that. Speaking of exciting, by the way, you're watching rawmike.com or you have downloaded the podcast. We're thrilled about that. Brought to you by DKI, broadcasting from the DKI studios here in downtown Toronto. I thought there would be excitement with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks had played so well previously going into L.A., They went in and absolutely hammered them in at least one of the series, and people were thinking, like myself, I wonder if the Dodgers
big surprise here
are going to be that engaged. Well, guess what? guys like Bellinger and the rest of the team decided that I guess we still like baseball, and courtesy of and property of Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Advanced Media,
1-0.
they really like the game.
The Dodgers lead. Bellinger waits. Greinke deals, and a swing and a high fly ball, left center field, carrying, gone! Bellinger with an opposite field home run, and the Dodgers now lead 2-0. And it's the folks wearing the Dodger blue in the ballpark who are standing and making noise right now.
Well, I'll be honest, too. That's, once again, the voice of our good friend Dan Schulman. And boy, I'll tell you, they got blown out. 3 Cobb. That's the series that I didn't see going 3.
No, that's a series I thought out of all of them might go the distance. When you kind of broke down every single one of them, it's kind of too bad. It was a no-show for the D-backs in this series, and a team that I thought, you know what, could not only make some noise against the Dodgers, could maybe be playing into late October. That isn't the case. The season is over after 3 games.
Here's a tweet in from Coach Frank. I just want to know if Dave got his hat back. That looked like a nice hat. Be a shame if he didn't.
Yeah, I didn't.
That would have been quite the travel for you to go back and forth just to throw that hat. That's very impressive, Dave. Before we get to Clark Judge, also, if we're taking a look at Major League Baseball, we'll try to squeeze some of the stuff in here. The Yankees have done it in a most impressive way. And again, considering that they almost didn't get there, this was, again, part of that magic of baseball. So this thing is going to a 5th game. Cleveland, who was the hottest team, arguably, in Major League Baseball with that incredible, 22? Did they get to 22?
Yep.
And now, boy, for them to fall flat against a Yankee team that seems energized, that's a tough one. Here's, once again, the Judge. This is not a home run, but it's still, he's significant anytime he gets to the plate. This is almost shocking. And once again, property of Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Advanced Media.
The 3-2. Swing and a ball ripped. Left field. Back there. And that one bounces off the track and hits the top of the wall. Hicks is in. Gardner is in. Judge into second. And it's 4-0. Aaron Judge delivers his first hit of this division series, and it's huge for Zip Yankees.
Once again, just a huge game for the Yankees. We'll get to Joe Girardi, who after the game was pretty emotional in talking about his team just getting there. And so we thought at this time we would go and we would call the amazing Clark Judge. And his breakdown is unbelievable. There is Clark Judge right there. Welcome to RawMikeRichards.com, Clark.
How are you?
Well, you know what? Sometimes I think the Thursday nighters and the Monday nighters, there was always that risk that the games are a little flat. Well, I'll tell you, with Trubisky, a couple of fake plays, some trick plays. That was a pretty entertaining game. So I got to ask you, Clark, looking at Trubisky and that performance, I thought he looked pretty poised. I mean, he's kind of thrown in there. I didn't know what to expect. But all in all, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, I thought he looked pretty good.
Well, he looked better than Mike Glennon, and that's why you're relieved. You go, well, actually, there might be something here to look forward to. There is a future, but it's one game. They lost that game. They lost it on an interception. So you take the good with the bad. He's going to make some mistakes, but at least they were interesting. At least in the second half, I'd say they were interesting. The first half, not so much. 3-2. The only thing we were missing there was a third period goal. It really was, to me, the first half was flat on both sides, especially Minnesota. But then you saw in the second half, the fake punt, the 2-point conversion. Those are things that John Fox doesn't do. He's very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Known John for years, and that's not like him. He deviated from the norm. That's if you're a Chicago Bears fan, because you go, wow. I mean, there's a great unknown here. With Glennon, you know what you get, all right? And what you get is a backup quarterback who can spot start and win you a game here or there. With this guy, there is no ceiling, and you know that we thought so much of him, our team thought so much of him that they made him the second pick in the draft. We must have something there. And he showed glimpses of that last night, especially to me outside of the pocket. I thought he made plays outside of the pocket. Now, let's just see what happens. I mean, it's one game. Let's see how we assess it after 1 year, 2 years, but he's better than what they had.
Yeah.
Well, for Case Keenum to come in there, and again, for a lot of people who maybe didn't, watch the University of Houston all that often, probably are unaware of, that he was a homegrown guy. He's a Texas guy, goes to the Texans. There was a lot of hope that it would be that great story, and it just didn't turn out that way. But that's not to say that there probably aren't skills in there somewhere. And as you know, Clark, in the NFL, sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's that coaching staff that works with you. And I'm not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame or all of a sudden he's an elite quarterback, but he does have a certain skill set that, I was kind of happy for the kid because I think he, I'm not one of these guys that likes to see those fail, and I thought it was a nice job for him to come in, if you want to put it, relief. So what is the status right now looking at that quarterback situation in Minnesota?
Well, it's Bradford's job if he's healthy, but that's a big if. It always has been during his career. The one caveat you've got with Sam Bradford is he always gets hurt. I mean, you say, well, he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of talent, but he's always hurt. No matter whether it's Philadelphia, the Rams here, somehow he's going to find his way to the sidelines. And so when that story came out after the first game this year, where he had the game of his life, and you go, wow, Sam Bradford, why he looks so comfortable here. He's got an injury. It may keep him out of the next game. I thought, oh no, here we go again. And it turns out it was a prolonged injury, and it affected him again last night. He played one half, but he was very poor and seemed to affect him. That's who Sam Bradford is, unfortunately, I think that's who he always will be. He's a guy who can give you some great games every now and then. Look like the guy at Oklahoma who was terrific and accurate, but by and large, he's a middle of the pack quarterback who gets hurt and gets hurt far too often. But the fact of the matter is, when he's good, he's better, and to me, much better than Case Keenum. So that's why he's going to be number one on that depth chart. At some point, they're going to have to make a decision there, because you can't keep going with a guy who's going to be playing 6, 8, 10 games a year. You've got to find somebody else. I don't know that Case Keenum's the answer. Looked good in the second half last night. Looked good against Tampa Bay, but I've seen games where he's completely the opposite, and he can't get it going. He has some skill, but it's got to be consistency.
And then from what we know, just staying on Minnesota for a second, Teddy Bridgewater is supposed to be on the practice field probably in the next 7 days. That kind of makes the water a little bit murkier.
Yeah, it does. I don't know what you're going to get from him, and that's an interesting story, and one that is going to need some explaining at some point, because it's been out a long time. I don't know what his future is. I don't know what he would give you coming back in the middle of the season, especially after missing last year, missing training camp. I'm not sure what you'd get from him, and I don't know where they are in terms of thinking, one time he was the guy, not only of the future, of the present. Where is he now? I mean, is Bradford the guy now? Because Bradford, I don't know where they stand with him either. They thought a lot of him after last year. They thought a lot of him after the first game. But as I said, that the only consistency about Sam Bradford are the injuries. And, this game's not so much about ability as it is about availability.
We want to look at Sunday and what happened, and I'm kind of curious on your takes about the Pittsburgh Steelers and a very uncharacteristic offense of Ben Roethlisberger throwing 5 INTs, losing to a Jacksonville Jaguars that are obviously they're upstart and they have some nice pieces, but they're not supposed to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. What has happened in Pittsburgh right now, Clark?
Well, they're just not firing on offense for whatever reason. Le'Veon Bell staying out of training camp, I think, hurt them. There seems to be some inner turmoil there. Antonio Brown certainly revealed it on the sidelines a week and a half ago. And Roethlisberger, I thought, seemed very tense in the locker room in that interview after the game. When he said, maybe I don't have it anymore. I don't put any stock in that. There's not a player out there who's going to tell you that. He says, maybe I don't have it anymore. He's going to walk away the next day. Ben Roethlisberger's not walking away. I think he said that in response to questions he really either didn't like, or he just went, okay, I've got to answer these questions. I'll give you it. What do you want? You want me to say maybe I don't have it anymore? Okay, maybe I don't. He knows he does. Those games happen. There was a game, and I think it was Jacksonville several years ago, came into Pittsburgh, and they put up barely over 100 yards in offense, and they still won. It happens. I mean, you're going to have stinkers like that. There are not many of those in Ben Roethlisberger's career, fortunately. He is a guy who's a special quarterback. He had a bad day, but they need to get that thing figured out. And I would say, rather than go into those three, I'd go to Todd Haley and say, let's open this thing up, throw the ball down the field more. Got to be more explosive. We've got explosive players here. Let's try to open this thing up more. And I think part of that interview that you saw through Ben Roethlisberger's frustrations is his frustration with the offense in general. He's throwing picks. They're not getting the points that they should. They're averaging just under 20 a game. That's a much better offense with those three guys on the field, but it's not clicking, and he's frustrated. they're frustrated. They need to get this thing straightened out, and they've got the explosive players. Let's see some explosive plays.
We're in conversation with Clark Judge here on RawMikeRichards.com, brought to you by DKI. And, there was a bunch of games I thought where I was really going to see some teams tested as to, kind of where they're going. Again, we're not going to get too excited. It's not halfway through the season. But I really thought, teams like the Panthers, I thought the teams like the Bengals, and quite honestly, the performance by Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay and Dallas, those were three games that sort of pointed to me to maybe where they're going to go from here. And I'll start with the Panthers game. I mean, this is a very good Lions team, I felt, and they went in there. They were the better team the entire game, Clark.
Yeah, they were. I thought you were going to ask me about the Montreal Canadiens. Thank goodness. Thank God. Now, anyway,
that's coming.
I don't know where they're going, but hopefully we tried the fast starts in the past couple of years. Didn't work out, so we're trying the slow start this year. The Panthers look good. Newton looked pretty good. They beat a good team in Detroit. I didn't think it would happen. I thought Detroit would beat them, but Carolina won. Now, I mean, Ebron drops the ball in the end zone. That would have been 7 points turned into a field goal instead. I think had Detroit had the ball at the end, they would have scored because all of a sudden Matt Stafford's looking like Matt Stafford again. They're coming back up. In fact, the matter is Carolina won the game. That's all that matters. They're now on top of that division. They are going to be the threat to Atlanta in that division. And Atlanta should be worried about them because Cam Newton seems to be playing now as he did 2 years ago. If he just would play and keep his mouth shut, he'd be fine. But he is doing the job on the field. The defense is good. They've got a legitimate running game. They've got weapons galore around him with the addition of McCaffrey. Even Benjamin's there. Funston. They've got so many good players now that I think it shows that this is a versatile team, and they can beat you in a lot of different ways. Defense, offense. Doesn't have to be the quarterback running as much. Still got Stewart in there. McCaffrey can do a lot of things. It's an interesting team, and they are playing well. And I do think that was a significant victory because, as you mentioned, the opponent was really good. I think Detroit's really good.
Clark Judge joins us from the Talk of Fame Network here on Raw Mike Richards. Jay Cutler and the Miami Dolphins, they actually win this weekend. But, man, when you look at Cutler's performance this season, are they starting to wonder, is it time for Matt Moore to replace him? Are they second-guessing exactly what they have in Cutler or what they thought they had in Cutler? Because he hasn't really come through, has he?
No, he hasn't. But they're not starting to wonder. I am starting to wonder. You're starting to wonder. I mean, I think a lot of people are going, the heck, this guy's supposed to be a system fit? Maybe the system doesn't fit him at all. Maybe he doesn't fit the system. Maybe he's just not that good. When Moore stepped in at the end of last year, I thought he actually gave him something that's missing now. They just are a mess. Offensively, they can't run the ball. They're not throwing it very well. They were supposed to have a head coach in there, Adam Gase, who was going to rejuvenate and energize that offense. And with Tannehill, it seemed to be the case. Not the case now with Jay Cutler. And I don't know where they're going. I mean, they won a game. That's the good news. The bad news is they've scored 2 offensive touchdowns in 3 games, including 1 on the last play of the game against the Jets, for God's sake. So they're not a very good team. What do you do with the quarterback? They know, again, what they've got in Matt Moore, but the head coach feels more comfortable with Cutler. And you would, too, honestly, to watch them practice. The guy's got all the ability in the world, but something's just not working out. And there are those intangibles that I never liked about Cutler from the beginning of his career. Went out and sat down with him in Denver. I didn't like him. I just said, there's something wrong with this guy. It's leadership. He's not a leader. And I think he's demonstrated that over the years. And here, something's not working. Would they make a change? I would think at some point they would, but that coach is not going to make it because you saw what he said last week. It really burns me when people criticize this guy. He's very defensive about Jay Cutler. Somehow, some way, he's going to make him fit that system. I don't know that's going to happen. I really don't know that's going to happen to me. He's had plenty of time.
Can we sort of look at the Rooney family? What's going to happen with the Giants? They're now 0-5. We saw what happened to Beckham, depending on what the injury status is. But at some point, I mean, I think teams do have a cycle. Is this the end of the cycle?
You mean in terms of the
players?
Front office, or
even Eli is their quarterback.
It's a good question. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, the Maras are loath to make dramatic changes. The consistency is great about them. That's what I love about them, and people like them and the Rooneys, and obviously Steve Bisciotti down in Baltimore, and Mike Brown in Cincinnati. I mean, there's consistency there in those franchises. And here, I think you look at what's going on, you say, This was supposed to be the year we were going to challenge for the top. This was because we got a great season last year. We were a playoff team last year. The defense really turned around. We got Eli putting the ball in the end zone, but he looks old. He doesn't look very effective. The offensive line stinks. You can't run the ball. You just lost your receivers. Defense isn't any good anymore. They can't make stops. They failed to protect leads 5 times in the last 3 games in the fourth quarter. They can't protect leads. So where do you go? I mean, where do you go? I look at that schedule. I go, where's their win? You just lost to San Diego at home. I'm in San Diego, the Chargers. Sorry, the Los Angeles Chargers. Old habits die hard. But you just lost to the Chargers at home. I mean, and so where's their win? And I don't know what the answer is, guys, because people are going to say, go ahead, throw on us. Who are you going to throw it to? OBJ, he's gone. Marshall, he's gone. Shepard, he's out. I mean, who are you going to throw the ball to? Who are you going to run the ball with? How are you going to stop? Because your defense can't stop anyone now. There are going to be changes after the year, and I think it probably is going to start with the GM. That's Jerry Reese. He didn't do anything with the offensive line in the offseason, brought back the same 5 guys. They couldn't protect Eli last year. It was an issue. They still were good. They were 11-5, I think, but still were good. But he needed to make some changes there. He didn't. I think he's the first guy to go. Because I think the head coach. I'm not a big Ben McAdoo fan, but I think they're going to give him a longer leash for good reason. He took to the playoffs last year. Not going to be there this year. I think he'll be safe, but there will be changes. I think it starts with the GM. But it's funny. For the season, what did we say? Yeah. There's going to be a team in New York. There's a team in New York that's the bottom favorite feeder. They'll have number 1 pick in the draft. We just didn't know it would be the Jets. Wouldn't be the Jets.
Well, Clark, you brought up the whole Montreal Canadian thing. I wasn't going to talk about it. I didn't want to be rude.
Don't, please.
You brought it up. What is going to happen there? I mean, as you said, the tremendous starts. Maybe they're playing possum. Is that what they're doing?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I don't pay much attention to it after the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it was, God, look at them. There's nobody better in the first 10 games, 11 games. But the season's end. There 1 year there were far too many teams that were better, and not too many who were worse. But I don't know. Last year I thought they had a real shot, and then they'd go to the Rangers and lose in 6, I guess it was. But I look at this year, and they've got a lot of young players, and bringing Duran and seeing how they're trying to mesh. I think there's a little bit of a learning curve here. I saw him in preseason. Actually, I liked what I saw because I thought, boy, there's some vitality, some youth. The back end is different. It's so completely different. Not to see Markov back there, boy, that's weird. Yeah. And you still got Carey Price, but I'll be very honest with you. I thought in the playoffs last year, I was disappointed with him because he was outplayed by Lundqvist, who had not had a good year, and you needed to have a great series. Lundqvist had a great series. I thought Price had a good series, not a great series, and I'm so used to him being a great goaltender. But he needs to be a great goaltender again because they're going to. Honestly, I think Toronto's a fascinating team to watch. I think Toronto's going to be fun to watch. But I like the fact that we're going to try something different this year. Let's see if we can have a slow start and listen to the tortoise and the hare tail and go, you know what? We learned a lesson from there.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Hey, Clark, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
No Yankees questions from Blue Jays fans.
Nope.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
Well, and
Okay.
I got to be honest. So the whole that conversation I heard about Joe Girardi,
Right.
Not being in New York. Sometimes so again, it's sort of the outside looking in. But I've always liked the guy because of his intensity, because of his heart on his sleeve. Sort of he's very emotional after that game, and the question about whether to challenge or not challenge. But I think he keeps. Questions about keeping his job. He should keep his job, should he not?
You're talking to a Yankee fan who did live in New York for 17 years, and I'm in the New York area. And I'm not a Girardi fan. I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's a special manager. I think he manages by the book. Some people call him Joey Loose Leafs because he's so predetermined in his moves. You can just tell exactly what he's going to do. And I'll sit there. My wife goes, "Turn the TV off. I'm tired of you yelling at it." And that night, to me, the worst move wasn't the non-challenge. That was bad. It was, why would he take Sabathia out? I mean, when he took Sabathia, I said to him, "What are you doing? How can you take him out? He's giving you a break. You're up 8-3. You want to rest the bullpen. He's retired 12 of the previous 13 Why would you go into a bullpen that needs to be rested? Makes no sense." Well, of course, then when that challenge came out, or the non-challenge, that was bad enough. And when the game was over, I said I want to go to the Yes Network because I really like the way those guys dissect the game. And they had John Flaherty, who's very good, Jack Curry, who's very good, and they were talking about it. And Flaherty was saying, "Listen, I was a catcher. Golfed for a lot of years, golfed for the Yankees, Red Sox, numbers of teams. And he said, you know, when the ball hits the bat, there's a different sound. So he said, you know that when that ball hit the bat and Sanchez was screaming to the dugout, he knew there was a different sound. He knew he'd caught strike 3. And just like you've got to go to the replay. And he said, so Girardi's talking about, as a former catcher, I don't want to break the rhythm and that sort of thing. He goes, well, as a former catcher, you got to trust your instinct because you were a catcher. Your catcher's telling you, go to the replay. And as he said, you don't need a replay. Use your eyes, for God's sakes. Use your catcher is telling you to do it. And what's the downside? What's the downside of losing a replay? Nothing. There's no penalty. So what did you have to lose? I didn't understand it. I thought he made every move he made that night. I said he's going to do it. He did it, and I go, it's going to blow up on him, and it did. Even to the point when we replaced Frazier at second base, and they put in a pinch runner. He gets picked off at second base. You go, what the heck are you doing, for goodness sakes? And there was an outcry afterwards. I listened to the fan afterwards, and WFAN, and people were going crazy. Well, so I felt the same way, but it was a culmination of years of frustration because you'll see him replace somebody and you go, I'm not sure why he's doing it other than the book tells him in the 7th inning, I bring in a guy, and the 8th inning, I bring in another setup guy, and the 9th they do this. You go, well, wait a second, this guy's cruising. Nobody can hit him. He's at 70 pitches. I mean, and Sabathia was at 77 that night. I didn't get it, but what you hear for people calling for his firing is that years of frustration of, we need to be better than this. We have a team we think is pretty good, and you stood in their way, but you've been doing that for a long time. That's their feeling. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but I kind of lean in that direction. I think Terry Francona would have done very differently. Joe Madden would have done it very differently. I thought he got caught unprepared, and if you're a manager, you can't do that. And I've gone on a long time about this guy, but I'll tell you one other thing. I was at the game, the 7th game of the 2003 playoff series with the Red Sox and the Yankees. You might remember it's the one where the home run was hitting, I think, the 11th or 12th inning by Booney at third base, and the Yankees win for Wakefield. But in that game, Martinez was pitching, and he was running out of gas, and they had a lefty in the bullpen. Grady Little went out to talk to him, and Martinez talked him into leaving him in the game, and he did, and it was a mistake, and the Yankees ended up tying it and winning it. And afterwards, the Boston Globe had written, Grady Little's gone. And I thought, why is he gone? I mean, he's a pretty decent manager. And they said he gets paid to make the tough decisions. You don't tell your pitcher to tell me what to do. You make that decision. That's why you're getting paid the big bucks. And here, Girardi's getting paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I mean, here's the catcher telling him you got to do something, and you should know right off the bat that's what you have to do. You at least have to appeal it because it's a big deal. I'd appeal it, and he didn't. And I thought, you also you overmanaged in that game, but you've done that again and again. You have to make the big decisions and the right decisions, and he made a lot of wrong ones in a big game. That game in and of itself, guys, that's not the reason you fire somebody like that. And he may not be. They may save his job here tomorrow night. But as a diehard Yankee fan that's watched him for a long time, I'm not a big supporter because I do think he overmanages, and I think sometimes he gets in the way of a team that's pretty good.
Oh, it's too bad you didn't have anything to say about the Yankees.
Yeah, I know. We got the clock here. We have a 5-minute shot clock here. You just extended it by about 3 minutes.
I love it.
That's the end of my sermon.
I feel like I'm one of the hosts on the fan going, okay, caller, okay, caller.
Yeah, that's right.
Get it, caller.
Could we cut him off, please?
Yeah.
Could we please just hang up on? Thanks. That's Clark from New York. Thank you very much. Call next year, would you please?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Clark. You take care.
Thanks, Clark.
Yeah, no more Yankees questions. Thank you.
Clark Judge talking to us today. Yeah, really had nothing to add to that.
I was going to say, we found a diehard Yankee fan there
after I said,
hiding in football talk.
I like Joe Girardi. Maybe he should keep his job. What? You're watching and listening to RawMikeRichards.com, brought to you by DKI, broadcasting live from the DKI studios. And as I said, after the game last night, Joe Girardi was very emotional. But I think, again, as emotional as Clark was as a fan, you can also see it, Dave, as a manager, because just in itself, there'd be no reason to get misty-eyed over that game last night. I mean, there would not be a reason. But I think in the same way of that 10-year frustration or whatever, that means that's something that the manager has walked around with. And it came out last night. This courtesy, I believe, of is it ESPN? And property of Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Advanced Media.
It's a lot, but I wonder if you can in some way frame the past 48 hours from how you personally and this team might have felt on Saturday and how you feel right now.
Yeah. when you go through what we went through on, I don't even remember what day that was, Friday. It's as difficult as a loss as I've had as a manager. Had some difficult losses as a player, but it's really difficult, and it's difficult because I care so much, and it's not just, it's not caring about myself. It's caring about everyone else that is involved and that is wrapped up in the Yankee baseball. Whether it's the fans, the front office, the owner, the players, the trainers, the support staff, the coaches. I really care. And, we've gotten it back to 2-2, and, we got a shot now. So it's a totally different feeling than it was the other day, and these guys have picked me up.
There's Joe Girardi, emotional Joe Girardi, and again, people like Clark, who are representative of Yankee fans who don't like the way in which he manages, as he said, sort of sticking to the book, being very predictable in what he does, not as much instinctual maybe as you'd like to see. The only thing I would say to that is, Dave, as always when you call for someone's job like that, looking at his resume and what he's done with this team, should they go on, which would make it even harder, then who's out there who has a better resume you think would do a better job? Because the guys that he mentioned already have jobs.
Bingo.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm always, okay, it's great. John Farrell, it's conceivable maybe he's no longer the Bull Sox manager. We'll have to see in the offseason. But who is a guy that's better than the guy? And again, that's always when you call for the coach's head. That's always what I think.
It's one of those things, too, where, some Yankee fans probably want Joe Girardi gone, but his record speaks for himself. He has a World Series title behind him. He was a former Yankee catcher. He does know the game very, very well. Maybe he is a little too technical, a little too by the book, but for the most part, Joe Girardi's a winner. And if the Yankees were to dismiss him after the season, it wouldn't be too long before this guy is either A, in a broadcast booth because he's that good. I used to talk to him a lot when he was with the Yes Network before the Yankees job, when Joe Torre was managing. And number two is he's the kind of guy that could probably pick his next job, and he doesn't necessarily have to take a Brewers job or an Oakland A's job. He could sit there and wait for a Dodger job or wait for a National job. And by the way, there could be a Washington Nationals job if Dusty Baker's team doesn't get it done against the Cubs, and they are on the brink. So watch out for that. That's a pretty good opening in Washington if it actually does become an opening, but we're a little ahead of ourselves right there.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because coming up is something that we look forward to. You know what it is.
And now it's time for Dave Bastel's Hateful Eight.
Pretty hateful.
There's a lot of hate in there.
Yes, there is.
Man, I hope that guy doesn't use that voice when he's at a McDonald's drive-thru. Let's start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, you guys have some major league problems. All the talent on offense, maybe the best in the conference, but the Jags blast you. They go into your building and 231 yards rushing. That's almost like beating you up and then going back to your family and beating them up too. That is not very good if you're a Steelers fan. They have to turn that around. But I'll take my second part of the Hateful Eight on Stephen A. Smith. Relax with your commentary on Ben Roethlisberger, you jerk. Honestly, 5 interceptions and you're telling the guy to retire? You're talking to a Hall of Famer, something you never will be. That's no way to talk to Big Ben. Problems off the field, rest aside too. On the field, the guy's a boss, and he has a lot of rings on the finger, so careful with what you say after only one game. Number 3, this kills me to say it because I've been backing him all season, but the Detroit Paper Lions, man, you had all the opportunities too, and you were blasted by Carolina. The score looks a little flattering because of what you did in that fourth quarter, but man, you had it right there. And if you look at some of the mistakes and some of the instances where, you're a half a yard away from beating the Falcons, you spot the Carolina Panthers some points in your own building. You could have been 5-0 in a team that I thought was going to be competing with the Green Bay Packers. Happy Thanksgiving Canadian version to Jay Cutler and your 77 yards against the Tennessee Titans. Maybe that broadcast position wasn't all too bad for you, and you should have actually taken it, because after Fox watching what you've produced on the field this year, may reconsider bringing you back to the broadcast booth because their own play-by-play team could probably throw 77 yards against the Titans. Jets, you're killing me. The Jets are killing me. I cry on Saturday and Sunday afternoons thinking about the Jets and what they've done, the way they go out and accidentally beat teams and are a 3-2 record. And I mean, what's going to happen next week? Are you going to upset the New England Patriots? I mean, honest to God. And honestly, on the other side of it, Cleveland at home, and you got the Jets. You got a team that basically wants to lose, and they still win the game. That is so disappointing. Speaking of disappointments, you suck when the Los Angeles Chargers cross the continent after massive travel this entire year, don't have home field advantage in their own building, and go to New York and beat the crap out of your own team. There's one poor, pissed team. That'd be piss poor team in the state of New York, and it's called the Giants. And man, am I shocked by that. And this is coming from a Jets fan, by the way. And finally, last of the least, the strategy of the Arizona Cardinals drastically has to change. You miss one key player in your backfield and you melt down the season like you have been. I mean, honestly, like, Philadelphia is a pretty good team, but you're not supposed to go to Philadelphia and lose by 25 points with what you have at the quarterback position, what you have at the receiving position. This was a top 5 defense last year, and you're playing like complete garbage. That is why you made my hateful 8.
And now it's time for...
Yeah, that was.
Dave Bastles.
Hate you.
Hateful.
Yes.
8.
You suck. Stephen A. Smith, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's the old, and this is what they do sometimes in the States. It's like, okay, you take one side, and I'll take the other, and we'll just start yelling, and we'll see who's got it right. Because let me tell you something. And I'm like, what? Ben Roethlisberger, and again, as you said, this isn't a question about morality and ethics.
Yeah.
Because he might lose. He might lose that one.
Yeah, he might lose in the game of life, but we're talking about the game of football.
He might lose when it comes to driving motorcycles, for instance. That's also not his strength. But what his strength is being in that pocket, having some exceptional footwork, being able to see down the field and make the throw that wins, I don't know, championships, Super Bowls. And as much as they're not on the same page right now, because I thought they were just horrific, that doesn't mean I'm counting them out after week 5.
Bingo.
Like
they're still first place in the division. I didn't think they'd be 3-2 after 5 weeks, but I mean, man, to call for a retirement of that type of player. I mean, did this guy go around pissing on Joe Montana when he was a Kansas City Chief?
No. But it's just the shtick, right? And I just think the whole yelling to make sure that you're the loudest guy in the room just has never been my thing. So, again, I'm not going to get too excited. But as I said to Clark Judge, the teams that I thought were up against it to see who they really are, maybe I can see some sort of trend going one way or the other. And I give full marks to the Cincinnati Bengals, because they played a Buffalo team that's really not going to give you very much. And the fact that they even covered, Dave.
Yep.
Because I'm sure there was a bunch of people looking at +3, and I wouldn't have blamed you for taking the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And, don't look now, but the Bengals, after that horrific start, one game out of first place. Yeah,
I think they've looked strong. I think the Green Bay Packers do what the Green Bay Packers do. They used to be known for a defense, too, that would shut you down. I'm not so sure that the Green Bay defense is going to shut you down. But if they can get Aaron Rodgers being one of the elite guys, which quite frankly he is, they're going to beat a lot of teams, and it's going to make for exciting football. I give them full marks. And I think for Carolina, as much as I think a lot of people don't want to like them, I want to see what McCaffrey was going to do this year, and the reality is no one, I don't know why, talks enough about that defense, but they got a pretty damn good defense too.
Yeah, very good defense, and you know what? Maybe one of those teams that could surprise the Falcons in that division. And
fully.
And they have a tough schedule ahead of them too, because they got the Falcons in the division. The Saints team seems to be, back on track after a bye week. They're going to be back in action this week, and don't count out teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they've kind of underachieved, but they're still a roadblock in my opinion, the toughest division in football.
Good news for Falcons fans, they have Miami this week.
Very good news.
Yeah, they'll pound them. And they said these numbers are going to inflate. Right now it's -11.5. It's the NFL to have a number like that's pretty big. I think it will get bigger. It'll get closer to 2 touchdowns by kickoff, and I also think the same thing. Cleveland at Houston is only -10. And when I say only -10, it's Cleveland. I mean, they could put a beating on that Cleveland team, so those are two numbers to watch. Also last night, John Fox, as mentioned beforehand, trick play. A trick play, which is something that's not necessarily in his resume. Maybe he was watching that middle school football team from a bunch of years ago. Now, I don't know who has the stones to do this to another middle school coach. I know how I would feel if you did the old, and again, it's coach yelling to player. Kids are young at this, middle school, so we're talking like grade 4, or sorry, probably 5 or 6 in there somewhere. I think it's got to be, it's not junior high, it's middle school, so they might be in grade 6, 7, something like that, maybe not even grade 7. And so they're yelling to the quarterback, the one coach is, and so it's the old either check the ball. It's a version of the hidden ball play, but as I said, the best way to hide something is in wide open spaces. And this, if I was the other coach, I'd lose my mind. Here is the trick play. This is out of Texas, by the way. Go figure. Yelling to his quarterback. Check the ball. Oops. Now, if you're the coach on the other team, and it is that age group, what do you say after the game? What do you say to them?
That handshake's going to be really interesting.
I got to think that I'm saying, did you really need to win that badly for guys who have been playing Pop Warner football for a couple of years? Some of them put their helmets on backwards, their pants on backwards. The kidney pad all of a sudden is in the front because they don't know which side it goes on. And you have to run a trick play to win a game? That might be a little awkward. But again, once it is the, I guess, want to win, which we've seen brutally south of the border. Here's a high school game. Now, this is again, it comes off of confusion where coach is yelling to player. Now, we saw it in the CFL once, the I think I forgot my tee, do I need a tee with Lance Chomick at Iverwin Stadium? That worked. Here's another version of the hidden ball, but not quite hidden because everyone can see it. Coach yells to quarterback. So he takes the ball and walks towards his coach. Says, come here.
Go.
Run. Oh. Okay, that's high school. That's a little bit different because I know what I would do if I was on the defensive side of the ball with that guy's back to me holding the ball up with one hand. I would carve him in half. People would have to visit him in the hospital. His grandmother would be crying about, well, remember when he used to walk? I'm serious. I am that kind of guy. There's no way he's walking after taking a snap with the ball in the air at high school. That's when I look at it and go, wow. I can't believe those things. But last night's fake punt by Chicago with O'Donnell, that was just good coaching. That was the guys up in the box saying, by the way, there is zero coverage once that ball is snapped.
Bingo.
I thought it was great, even though John Fox doesn't do it. Last night's game was surprisingly entertaining.
I didn't expect it either, considering that the Bears don't really provide anything. I was looking at more as a curiosity to see what they have at the quarterback position, again, Sam Bradford leaves the game. It's a big disappointment if you're any kind of betting guy on the Vikings, because when Sam Bradford's actually healthy, the guy's a more than adequate quarterback. He's a decent quarterback, and it's just disappointing that he can't stay healthy.
Should you tell the people who's coming on next week? Because
not yet.
I'm so excited.
Not yet.
In studio too, right?
Yeah,
you wouldn't tease me.
No.
Okay, so we're not going to say it.
We'll add it onto the list of announcements we have to make.
Yeah, actually, there could be a couple more this week, too.
Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers on them.
I like announcements. You know that.
You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
It's time!
By the way, The Water Boy was on the weekend. I had to watch it. Mama said, Mama said, Mama. Oh, when he hits those guys and makes that sound. Okay, roast beef, that's when I get hard. You were hard for Austin Matthews. I'm hard for like really hard hits, even when it's fake and it's Adam Sandler.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Colonel Sanders. Join us tomorrow. More fun and excitement. That's what I'm saying anyway. By the way, if you watch on Twitter, Leafheart, who only does Leaf games, is now 2-0. So watch for that. RawMikeRichards.com.